Another one of those Democratic tax-the-rich plans that, the president, according to an advanced text of his speech and what he's been saying around the country, he wants to raise the rate of capital gains. He wants to tax higher income folks, and that does not go over well with a lot of higher income folks and certainly with Republicans.
Well, and part of the reason that he wants to make those additional taxes is to pay for his free community college program that he is now espousing.
Yeah, and that's a very interesting proposal, is it not? And for those who are not acquainted with that, the president is proposing a new plan that would, in effect, have the government, federal government, pay for students, provided that they have and maintain a certain grade point average. It would pay for their community colleges. And that's something that on the surface you'd say, hey, the Republicans are going to go along with that. Why not? It helps pay to make people smarter. But is it that simple?
Well, no, it's not that simple. When you start talking about taxes in Washington, it is never that simple. Here's the reality of what's happening tonight. What's happening tonight is the opening salvo of the 2016 presidential campaign. Now, obviously, Mr. Obama is running for president, but certainly he is the head of the Democratic Party, and he is going to sort of establish, you might say, the opening ground of where this campaign will go. In many ways, and I've said it before, it's kind of an us against them. That's how the president is going to establish this. Clearly, Democrats who want to be president, not the least of which is Joe Biden, which will be seated behind the president tonight, they're going to be listening closely. They know what's going on. And I think as this thing rolls out and as we get sort of the reaction to it from Republicans and from Democrats in the days ahead, this is going to be part of the conversation. Where does this take us to the presidential election 2016? And let's not forget, by the time you and I are having this conversation a year from now, we'll be in the middle of the primary process and the caucus process. We'll be talking about Iowa, and will have been for a couple of months.
But let's go back to what you were just saying about the president sort of giving away his hand, if you will, and because he's not going to get most of the things that he's going to push for tonight in his speech. I think that's a given, and I think you would agree with that, because it's a Republican-controlled Congress. They're not going to give the president a lot of this stuff, certainly not on a silver platter, and probably not even on a porcelain platter. So this is, I agree with you, I think this is about the future, but if you're a Democrat, whether you're Joe Biden or whether you're Hillary Clinton or whether you're somebody that we're not even talking about yet, do you want to necessarily be locked in the year 2015 to proposals, economic proposals, that a lame duck president is putting out there when you are trying to make a name for yourself, when you're trying to run an independent campaign in 2016?
Well, you work it into the conversation, and let's not be unclear about this. In 2 or 3 or 4 months, a lot of the conversation will have turned toward other things anyway. Much of this will have been dismissed by then, even though the president will certainly be trying to make the case, as he has been and will be over the next several days as he goes out to make his case to various locations around the nation. So, Democrats are going to do what Democrats are going to do. This isn't happening in a vacuum tonight. Everybody knows what the speech looks like, what's going to be said. I think there will be a couple of things that will be interesting in terms of what position Democrats will take, not the least of which is what he says relative to foreign policy tonight. As you know, part of the speech is going to be predicated on the fact that he wants to get the whole Congress behind free hand to go after ISIS and to take full military action against him. By the way, I think as I'm looking at it, the president's just now coming into the room.
That's right, and we can hear, let's bring up some sound, and that is the President of the United States now entering to deliver his State of the Union speech tonight.
Sergeant at Arms just made the announcement, the President shaking hands and saying hello and thank you very much. We will get right back to Dick Helton and Charles Feldman and our coverage of the State of the Union address. You won't miss a thing here on KNX 1070. Let's check in with Denise Fotto right now for traffic and weather together on the 5s. Sponsored by Fantastic Sam's.
I've got a new problem on 134. This is on the eastbound side of the 134, just before the 5. I think we're going to see a break in traffic. We had some debris reported in the far right lane. Also 134 westbound at Hollywood Way. We still have a tree branch down in the far right lane. This is a SIG alert till further notice, and a bad crash on the 10 eastbound right at the 605. Looks like some injuries in that one. Discover your perfect style. The Fantastic Sam's Hair Salon's $13.95 haircut special is going on now through February 1st. Every haircut always includes free shampoo and conditioner conditioning rinse. The $13.95 haircut special is going on now at Fantastic Sam Hair Salons. Hurry in. Traffic and weather together on the 5s from your Southern California traffic leader, KNX 1070 and CBSLA.com.
CBS 2 weather forecast, short but sweet fog overnight, warmer next couple of days. Tomorrow, 60s to near 70. Look for the upper 70s by Thursday. Right now, 60 on LA's Miracle Mile. Back to our pre-coverage of the State of the Union address with KNX 1070's Charles Feldman and Dick Helton.
And Dick, we were talking before, and for those just tuning in, of course, the President of the United States has now arrived to give his State of the Union speech. You can hear the applause now. He's doing the sort of obligatory hugging and kissing and shaking hands, presumably mostly with Democrats, maybe a couple of Republicans here and there. But what we were talking about, Dick, before the traffic break, is this president tonight is going to be laying out an economic plan to a large degree that is not so much what he is going to get in the remaining years of his presidency, but a sort of look ahead for Democrats who will be running for the presidency in 2016. And my question is, if you were a Republican, for example, what would you zero in on in this speech tonight to pick apart?
Well, I think, first of all, I'd be looking at, his tax proposals. That always is something that Americans want to talk about taxation. And who gets the money? Where does the money go? I think also something, if I'm a Republican, and this is going to be a difficult one, I think, for the Republican members, though, is his plan for how do we deal with ISIS. And as I said before we took the break there, the president's going to make the case tonight that he wants the Congress to get behind him in making a very strong military effort against ISIS right now and against some of these other terrorists that the United States is having to deal with, principally abroad. But there is also, always this fear that some of this will find its way to our shores. And so the president, yes, go ahead.
But I was going to say, but isn't that a curious thing in and of itself? Here he is, or will be, asking for Congress to put its stamp on approval for the fight against ISIS. Yet this is a president, as you know, who has used his executive authority, some have argued, to an extent beyond which he's entitled to.
Well, there is that, and this is part of what the Republicans are going to try to roll back in the House in this term. Many of the things that the president has done on immigration, for example. There's still this discussion of trying to roll back Obamacare. They've tried that several times. It has never succeeded. It won't this time. But that, again, is part of the discussion.
Looks like we're about to go here, isn't it, guys?
Well, we have the president at the podium, but as you know, this sort of is a ceremony that has built into it lots of applause, and as typically will happen, the applause will die down and it comes up again.
I have the high privilege and distinct honor of presenting to you the President of the United States.
And now we have more applause.
Well, this is always the way this goes. John Boehner hammering the gavel down, trying to get the crowd under control. Because look at it. It's late in Washington. It's after 9 o'clock. They don't want to be there all night either. They want to get this thing going.
Right. And as typical, the president is getting a standing ovation in the House chamber. Here's the President of the United States, I think.
Mr. Vice President, members of Congress, my fellow Americans. We are 15 years into this new century. 15 years that dawned with terror touching our shores, that unfolded with a new generation fighting two long and costly wars, that saw a vicious recession spread across our nation and the world. It has been and still is a hard time for many. But tonight, we turn the page. Tonight, after a breakthrough year for America, our economy is growing and creating jobs at the fastest pace since 1999. Before the financial crisis. More of our kids are graduating than ever before. More of our people are insured than ever before. As free from the grip of foreign oil as we've been in almost 30 years. Tonight, for the first time since 9/11, our combat mission in Afghanistan is over.